I wanted VSAP to be the first person to explain to us the technicalities of this bill. But since we have a representative from Ginebra San Miguel later on, we'll request them to explain the technicalities, and then VSAP can join us later on. So before we continue, let me direct the committee secretary to acknowledge our resource persons for today.
Good morning, Your Honor. For today's public hearing on House Bill number 10535, amending sections 134 and 168 of the NIRC, we have the following resource persons. From the Department of Finance, we have Assistant Secretary Carlo Fermin S. Adriano. From BIR, we have Attorney Edgar Alan Reyes II and Mr. Emmanuel Villardo. From the NDRC, we have Attorney Josette Concisa Tidita, Mr. June Ocol, and Ms. Lois Ruth P. Santiago. From DTI, we have Undersecretary Alan B. Hepty. From Ginebra San Miguel, we have Mr. Teodorico Lasing. From the Tax Management Association of the Philippines, we have Attorney Crescencio Meneses. From Dubaladad and Associates, we have Attorney Jomel Manaig. And from PRESA, we have Attorney Jenny Junji Romero, Attorney Mark P. Rubio, and Ms. Cristeta V. Cañete. That will be all, Your Honor.
Thank you, Comsec. Just as an opening statement, this morning I was reading the news and I saw this article, and let me just flash it. This morning, I think Asa Carlo probably has read this morning, but national debt rises to a new high of 16.3 trillion pesos. No? So, of course, the headlines seem shocking. When you see the headlines and when you see the number, everyone will have a very surprising day. But however, if you look at the details, the strategy of the government is really to outgrow debt by growing our economy as fast as possible. So when you grow our economy, you have more revenues. And when you have more revenues, you have more ways to pay off debt, or at least roll it over till the next few years. And when you talk about growing the economy, you need revenue also to grow the economy, especially on government projects. So one of the objectives of this committee is to look for new sources of revenue for government, no matter how small. If there are gaps in our existing laws, and those gaps can generate revenue, additional revenue for government, then that will be the best case. So today, we'll be talking about House Bill 10535, and the title of the bill, an act amending sections 134 and 168 of Republic Act number 8424, otherwise known as the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended. And during our consultative meetings, our internal meetings, it seems to me that this can be a potential source of new revenue for government. And that's why today we will request our resource persons to enlighten us and share with us the technicalities of this proposed measure. Admittedly, this is very technical. We're talking about denatured alcohol, and in the beginning, when we were analyzing this bill, it took us a while to understand what denatured alcohol is. I thought denatured alcohol is the ones we can buy in Ralph's or in the supermarket, and yung mga iniinom natin, pala kabaligtaran. No? Kabaligtaran pala siya. No? Just goes to show that I'm not a technical person. Manginginom ako, but hindi ako technical person. But after analyzing it, after going through the bill very thoroughly, we think that this can be a new source of revenue for government. No? So with that, because the bill is technical in nature, we would like to request some representatives from the private sector to enlighten us what denatured alcohol is. We invited VSAP, Distilled Spirits Association of the Philippines, headed by Ms. Olivia Limpeao, the president of VSAP. We also invited a representative from Ginebra San Miguel, Mr. Lasim. All right, sorry for that technical error. I said that we invited Mr. Lasin, also from Ginebra San Miguel, to give us some idea how denatured alcohol is being produced. No? So with that, we'll start off first with our private sector resource persons. We'll reverse. Normally, we start off with government, but today we'll start off with our private sector resource persons. We'll request Ms. Olivia Limpeao to give us a lecture on denatured alcohol, as simple as possible. Again, I'm not a technical person, but let's start off with a 101 basics, how denatured alcohol is being produced, where is it coming from, where is it being used. So just basics, and then after that, we can move into how denatured alcohol is being taxed. No? Because the whole point of this hearing is the taxation and potential revenue source from denatured alcohol.
Thank you very much, Senator Wing Gatchalian.
Do you have a PowerPoint presentation?
No way, because we didn't have enough time. But we'll just explain it simple, layman's, diba, para for everybody's appreciation. So I think we should start with a bit of a historical perspective on denatured alcohol. So in the past, denatured alcohol was made with what we call heads and tails. So diba, in alcohol production, there is the heads, the heart, and the tails. The heart is what we use to make distilled spirits. The heads and tails are really parts of the distillation process that has a bit more of congeners that are not really suitable for consumption because of the not so good chemicals there, the chemical composition, and also it affects the organoleptic properties of the spirit. So it's the heart that gives us the best congener profile that distinguishes one spirit from another depending on what is the substrate used. So if we use sugarcane, it becomes rum, no? After we ferment and distill, becomes rum. We use grains, becomes whiskey, and all that. So normally in the past, they would use the heads and tails to make denatured alcohol. So, kasi you know the hearts, we are heavily taxed on that as spirit. So if you can consume it, it is taxed under the same tax law. No? So we have both the specific tax and ad valorem tax. Now, the denatured alcohol is used for other purposes. So they use it for rubbing alcohol, sanitizer alcohol. It's also used for other products like cosmetics. No, so there are other uses for denatured alcohol. And in the law, it says that to be denatured, you have to add certain chemicals, diba, to render it unfit for human consumption. So either it makes it bitter, hindi mo mainom, diba? It's not good to drink, and it's also it's not good for you to consume. No, it's not good for people to consume it. So for that, there is a process where it's called a denaturing process, and the chemicals added to it, and the process is usually monitored by the Bureau of Internal Revenue. So they come to your plant, they watch how you denature the denaturing process, and that is the way that you can get away with paying excise taxes on spirits. So there is now no taxes on denatured alcohol. No, but now because the use for sanitizer alcohol and all these cosmetics, toners, whatever, right, whitening products is big. So we don't anymore just rely on the substandard alcohol. So you can also use good quality alcohol. In fact, now there's cosmetic grade alcohol, which is higher in proof than the usual food grade alcohol. But because if you want to distill to a higher proof, then you suffer in terms of organoleptic properties, no? So that one is used for cosmetics, no? A lot of cosmetic companies require cosmetic grade alcohol. That's about 100%, diba? 100% alcohol by volume. But it's like pure alcohol. So, so in the past, diba, most of the denatured alcohol was domestically produced. But I think now, a lot of the cosmetic companies are also importing their denatured alcohol. So, we in the industry are not even against the importation of denatured alcohol, no? So we can also decide to buy locally, or because actually our domestic consumption of alcohol is not enough to support the needs of the domestic industry. So even for spirits, we import. There's also importation of alcohol, and so there's really not enough to go around to supply the needs of the domestic market. More so the export market if we want to export our products. So we are not against the government allowing the importation of already denatured alcohol because it really cuts the process, makes things easier for everyone. Now, with regards to added revenue, of course, we leave it to the wisdom of the legislature if they would like to tax denatured alcohol because really it is already outside the purview of the distilled spirits industry. So we are really here only for distilled spirits, but our members also make denatured alcohol. And once it's out of our plant, then it goes to the other industries. So it's really not that complex. So it's really a matter of tax. But for the BIR, if it cannot be consumed, then it's not a specific tax on spirits. If it can be consumed, we are taxed under the same tax law. So that's how they look at it. So, but with regards to denatured alcohol, it's really tax-free for now. Yes.
So just to go back, we'll concentrate first on the distillers. I think that your members are distillers.
Yes, Senator, yes.
And then, so the distillers, if I understand it correctly, they produce denatured alcohol because of it's considered waste alcohol. It's not. It's because in processing distilled spirits, you cannot avoid to have waste alcohol. I'm putting it very simply and just to make everyone understand. That's part of the process. Like any other processes, like for example in food products, you also have waste.
Yes, Your Honor.
So in distilled spirits, you also have waste. And denatured alcohol is considered waste alcohol.
Yes, Your Honor, because it cannot be used for the actual production of the finished product. We reserve the hearts, as we call it, to produce the distilled spirits for consumption.
And what do you call the denatured?
Heads and tails. They can function heads and tails.
So these heads and tails, how come there is waste? Just to give us an idea.
So we ferment the substrate. We produce low alcohol, right? That's like the wine. So when you say wine, it's fermented. Now, to make it into distilled spirit, it goes through a distillation process. This one is where we evaporate all the liquids there and turn it into distilled spirit. So the distillate, now the first part is called heads. So we cut it. Parang we in the distilling industry know where to cut the heads and the tails. Kasi the functional profile of the heads and the tails are not really suitable and not really advisable to add so much of it, no? Parang we should know where to cut it, where we get the best part of the distillation process. The heads kasi has congeners that are not so good, and so we set that aside, and we also set aside the tails. And these are the parts of the distillate that we can turn into denatured alcohol. Yes.
This waste, you cannot avoid it.
You cannot avoid it, for Your Honor. It's really part of the production process.
Okay. And so you have waste, and but you can, if you don't sell the waste, you dispose it.
No, you can put it back to the distillation process, but you always set it aside, diba? So parang it's like we will separate the heads and tails. If we don't dispose it, it goes back to the total distillate to be distilled again. So it just goes in and out. Pero we still cut the parts to use for the distilled spirit beverage. But sometimes if you accumulate too much, of course you'd like to sell it, diba? So we can't really add too much back to the pot that it will be distilled.
So in the process, there's always going to be waste alcohol.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yung heads and tails.
Yes, Your Honor.
Hindi mo siya ma-avoid agad. That's part of the process.
It's really part of the process.
And do you dispose the heads and tails or the waste? I call it waste alcohol. Do you dispose it ever, or you just keep on?
We just keep on, or if you want, if like certain distillers, they have clients already who buy denatured alcohol, they can denature it and sell it.
Okay, so in the other option, instead of putting it back, is to sell it.
Yes, Your Honor.
To sell it as denatured alcohol.
Yes, after undergoing the denaturing process.
Undergoing the denaturing process. And how do you denature those waste, those head and tails? What is the simple process of
they just add a denaturant. So you blend it, you put it in a separate tank, then you add the denaturant, and then you mix it, and it's already considered denatured.
Denatured, and then it will not be fit for human consumption.
No more, Your Honor.
Okay, and this can go to, you said it can go to rubbing alcohol, cosmetics, and even automotive. Can it go to
Your Honor, I think cosmetics, they're also quite strict. They're also quite strict on the standards. So I think they don't really buy from the distillers. They would buy from they would buy cosmetic grade alcohol.
Okay, but it can be used for cosmetics.
It can be used also. Siguro depending on the category of the cosmetic. Siyempre, the higher end, the luxury ones, diba? Parang there's also
may high end, may low end,
So I think they would also, it would depend on their formulation.
Correct. That's part of their commercial strategy, whether to use high grade or low grade.
Yes, Your Honor.
What are the markets? What are the top markets for denatured alcohol? Cosmetics will be here in the Philippines.
I think would be number one. Would be the biggest would be the sanitizer alcohol. Diba, no? Sanitizer alcohol, and then cosmetic, diba? Industrial. So maybe you can explain the industrial. May I request?
Yeah, go ahead, Attorney.
So I know there's also for, as you mentioned, Your Honor, yung fuel. Meron din fuel, ano?
So it can be used as to blend with fuel?
No, we don't use it but to blend.
Actually, Mr. Lacsin, you can join in. I know are you an engineer or?
Okay. Good morning, sir. I'm a chemist by profession.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So to add to this Olivia's statement, we at Ginebra San Miguel were the manufacturer of the San Miguel ethyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol. So, being a chemist, I'm familiar with the process of how we make our rubbing alcohol. So, as mentioned by Ms. Olivia, we fully support the statement of DSAP being a member of the group. It all starts, sir, with the raw material, which is the molasses in our case. And in the process, we do fermentation, we do distillation. Okay, in the process of that fermentation and distillation, ethanol, which is the ingredient of the alcohol, we don't produce only ethanol, we produce other impurities. So that's why it's inherent in the process to produce the bad alcohol or the impurities or what we call the heads and tails. Okay, so in the process of distillation, you separate the heads and tails from the clean alcohol. Okay, so as mentioned also by Ma'am Olivia, there are different grades of cosmetic alcohol or the one we use for the denatured alcohol. So for the lower grade, they use heads and tails. But in our case, we use the hearts. We denature it. Okay, we denature it to make it unfit for human consumption. That's to distinguish the alcohol that we use for our spirits and the one we use for our rubbing alcohol. Okay, so what do we do with our heads and tails? Yes, some industries use it for rubbing alcohol, but in our case, we don't use that in our rubbing alcohol. We use it for vinegar, so we sell it. But we denature it first, and then we sell it to our vinegar suppliers. Okay, so yes, the process in our company, we add a high, what's that, bitrex. We call it bitrex. It's a very bitter compound. So to our hearts, to make it unfit for human consumption. And then, after the addition of the bitrex or the bad tasting chemical, we now produce the San Miguel ethyl rubbing alcohol. So that's the one we sell to our consumers, mostly hospitals.
Meron bang San Miguel rubbing alcohol?
Yes, sir.
Baka mainom ng mga manginginom yun.
Malino po dun sa label. Yes, sir. Malino po dun sa label na it's for external use and not for
drinking.
Yes po. And before, as mentioned, we have to denature it first, opo, to distinguish it from the alcohol that we use for our spirits. So, yun po yung proseso na ginagawa namin sa aming facility. So, as also mentioned po dito sa position paper that we support po sa DSAP, ito po ang aming ginagawa is sa local alcohol. And statement po dito sa position paper is meron po kaming gustong ilapit na yung gagamitin po sana rin is mag-import ng already denatured alcohol. So yun po yung gusto namin ipasama dito sa pinag-uusapan po natin ngayon. Kasi right now po, ang nakasaad po dito is we denature locally yung pong alcohol na kinukuha natin. Opo. So we support po yung nasa position paper po ng DSAP na we import the already denatured alcohol para po pagdating dito, denatured na siya. And beneficial po ito sa amin sa manufacturing sa industry kasi medyo mura po ito compared sa domestically denatured alcohol. Tapos po wala naman po tayong nakikitang parang madideprive po ang ating government dun sa excise tax kasi pag po ginamit natin ito, matatax naman po yung produkto. In case po na, kasi kaya pong ihiwalay yung denaturant sa alcohol. So pag inihiwalay po ito, ginamit sa liquor, matataksan din po yung liquor na pinagdamitan po dito. Yun po naman sir, yung magiging process. And that process is very expensive and it's not ideal for a beverage company to pursue that process na ihihiwalay po ulit natin yung denaturant dun sa alcohol. So, yun po, Senator Gatchalian, yung nasa sa loob po ng manufacturer pagdating po dito sa pinag-uusapan natin ngayon.
We'll focus first on the local supply, and then after that, there's a request to include imported denatured, no? We'll focus on the local supply. So right now, itong mga distillers, including Ginebra San Miguel, you produce because of your, they call it bad alcohol, no? You cannot avoid to have bad alcohol because of the process.
Tama po, sir.
And in order to make it productive, you denature it and use it to you use it for rubbing alcohol, you use it for cosmetics, this type of non-food grade products. Tama ba?
Yes, sir. Tama po yun. And yung as mentioned po, depende po sa quality nung gusto natin na rubbing alcohol.
No.
So, pwede po yung heads and tails. Pwede rin po yung hearts.
Yeah,
or the
bahala na kayo doon. Diba? That's your strategy na.
Yes po. Pero po, ang important po doon, dinidenature po namin.
Yes.
In both cases po yun na.
Okay.
To make it unfit for human consumption.
Okay. And then when you denature it, no? Pag na-denature na siya, do you have to get permit from BIR to denature it?
Yes, sir. Ang BIR po natin nag-release kung ano pong formula. They have an approved formula kung gaano karaming denaturant o yung Bitrex na sinasabi ko po para po masabi na denatured alcohol po siya.
Okay. So right now, when you sell your denatured alcohol, first, when you denatured alcohol, you apply for a permit from BIR. Tama?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes,
The permit for, we call it a denaturing permit.
Okay. And then right now, those are you as we speak, are you denaturing? And is BIR issuing permits
Yes,
for you
sir.
to denature?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We have a permit po. Kaya po nakakapag-denature po kami sa aming facility.
How often do you denature?
Sir, depende po yan.
Just an idea. Idea lang. Like in a month, ilan beses?
Siguro po kami po, depende po yung sa demand forecasting po ng namin. So every 2 months, every other month.
Every other month,
Yes, po,
ganun.
mga ganyan po kami.
But were there instances na hindi nyo dinidenature, tinatapon nyo na lang yung...
Yung aming heads and
heads
hindi
and
po. Kasi po yun nga, sabi po namin, pwede naman namin gawin sa suka. Binibenta po namin
Sayang.
sa...
Okay.
Pero dinidinature din po namin yun bago ilabas namin sa aming facility.
Siyempre sa negosyo, kung sisig nga, kinakain niya, pati ulo.
Mm.
Diba? Ito pa. So you try to make it a productive product.
Yes, sir.
And then when you sell it to another company, in this case yata it's your sister company, no? But you sell it, I think, no? Tama ba?
Yung pong yung aming denatured alcohol, we use it po sa Hinojosa Mill because we have our own distillery.
Mm.
So we denature it and then we produce it for our...
But for the other distillers, you sell it to other companies.
Yes, agreed, sir. They sell it to other companies. In fact, as mentioned by our colleague, we sell it pa nga to the vinegar makers, no? We sell it also to vinegar makers.
Oh.
Yeah, they buy a lot also. But to make vinegar is an added process pa. So from the spirit, so we have distilled spirit, it goes to that acidification process pa. You turn the spirit to acetic acid to make
Okay.
into vinegar.
Okay.
So it's not only pala, sorry, I didn't, tama na he pointed it out, that there is also another source of denatured alcohol, which is the vinegar industry, which is also very big.
All right. So we'll go first to the non-food grade output. So when you sell, and again, no, pardon me for my ignorance, I'm not very well versed with this. When you sell denatured alcohol, taxes are imposed
So, Your Honor, no taxes for
because
that.
it's locally.
Because
so
po
the-
it's kasi no sin tax law is imposed because it is not fit for human consumption.
Okay.
So it's parang that's why it undergoes that denaturing process to ensure that it cannot be consumed as a distilled spirit or as an alcoholic beverage.
No sin tax law is imposed because it's locally denatured.
No, because it cannot be consumed as a distilled spirit product. It's
Uh-huh.
not fit for oral
But there's a
consumption.
distinction, diba, between imported and local denatured alcohol.
Mr. Chair,
Uh-uh.
when we denature alcohol, it becomes excise tax exempt. But when we sell denatured alcohol, we pay income tax and VAT. So, yes.
Yeah, but yung excise tax lang, yung specific and ad valorem.
Wala po. Excise tax exempt po yung denatured alcohol.
Okay. But in the law, if it's domestic denatured, if it's domestic denatured alcohol, then it becomes exempted from excise tax. Tama?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yung current provisions of the tax code, there's a domestic po yung nakalagay. So, right now, it's currently limited to domestically denatured alcohol po. Yung
Okay.
for excise tax exception.
Okay. So, in other words, yung mga distillers natin are considered domestic, domestic denaturer. Okay. And I understand also, there's also connection to the source of the alcohol. Meaning, if your alcohol, the alcohol that is coming in is from an imported source, then it becomes an imported denatured alcohol. Tama? Because the way to distinguish domestic denatured alcohol is also the source of the alcohol, which is, I believe, ethyl alcohol. I believe it. Tama ba yung technical term ko? Yung pumapasok is ethyl. Pag in ethyl is domestically produced, then it becomes domestic denatured alcohol. If the ethyl alcohol comes from abroad, then it becomes an import. Despite being denatured here, it becomes an imported denatured alcohol. Ganun ba ang interpretation?
Mr. Chair, when you say domestically denatured, the denaturation process occurred domestically. So regardless of the source of the ethanol, whether international or domestic.
Kaya, Your Honor, what is being requested by the industry is to allow already the importation of already denatured. Kasi right now, to be tax exempt, it has to be denatured locally. So if we import alcohol, we have to denature locally for it to be tax exempt. So
Let me again just clarify. So no matter where the ethyl ba ang tawag doon, yung pumapasok sa distillery, no matter where the ethyl alcohol is coming from, if you denature it domestically, it's now exempt from excise taxes. Okay. Right now, let's go to the imported denatured. The imported, when they come here, they're subjected to excise tax. Denatured, imported denatured.
no po, kasi in the process naman of taxation, the tax attaches when the product comes into existence. So when we import the ethyl alcohol, it's not subject to tax yet. But once we produce it to become a product, say a gin, a vodka, or rum, a whiskey, then the tax will attach to this product. So it has to be produced first.
I mean, it's imported denatured. What is the tax regime for imported denatured?
Actually, there is only this, this ruling, this BIR ruling. Maybe Yam can discuss the ruling.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, there was a ruling, BI ruling last 2022 issued Splash Corporation. It actually allowed the importation of already denatured alcohol. Apparently, I think there was a recent DOF ruling which stated that imported denatured alcohol is no longer tax exempt.
So it's no longer tax exempt, and it's subjected to the excise taxes, which is ad valorem and specific.
Yes.
Correct? Is that my question is that being experienced by your members, those who are importing denatured alcohol? Do you have members like?
Your Honor, if there is that DOF ruling now, no one will import. No one will import denatured alcohol because it doesn't make sense for you to import denatured alcohol to be taxed as a distilled spirit and to be used for let's say sanitizer alcohol or cosmetic. So it will definitely, I believe, there's none with this ruling of the DOF.
Okay.
So for now, they will go back. Ganun naman ang business,
Yes,
diba? They will go back to the regime where you import
which is the local,
Yes,
which is
po.
buying denatured locally.
locally. So you will, but you can import alcohol, ethyl alcohol, and then denature it here for it to be tax exempt. So of course, businessmen will follow. Will do it in accordance where they don't have to pay because there's no way for them to recover when they sell the denatured alcohol to the client. The client will also not want to pay the sin taxes, specific and ad valorem because they're not distilled spirit.
Correct. I just want to make that clear so that everyone will be on the same page. Now, I want to ask BIR. So, si Mr. Anyone from the BIR, no? So, let me just again clarify. When you import ethyl alcohol, distill it here, and produce bad alcohol, and denature that bad alcohol will not be imposed excise taxes.
Imported yung, Your Honor?
Imported yung ethyl,
Tatax po namin, o yun.
So tatax. That's why I want to clarify. So that's not
Kasi imported, sir.
imported in ethyl.
Domestic, and then distillery lang. Doon lang po kami nagfo-focus. Pinudos ni distillery, kay distillery din i-denature. Yun yung exempted. Pero kung in-import mo na, i-tatax na po namin yun.
Yeah, yung ethyl ang imported, yung ethyl.
Taxable pa rin.
Taxable. So yung denatured alcohol niya is taxable.
Opo.
So yung kaninang statement ng nila Miss Silimpe is not in line with your ruling. I think yung nangyari kasi yata during the pandemic it was allowed. Correct. I think that's why I think probably Miss Olivia had this notion that before it was allowed, no? But it was reversed, I understand.
Yes, sir.
Correct? So ngayon, pag nag-import ka ng ethyl, you distill it, and then you have bad alcohol, you denature it, that denatured alcohol will be imposed excise taxes.
Yes, sir.
Tama? Alright. So,
Mr.
yeah,
Chair,
yeah.
the BIR actually issued a ruling to Emperador distillers stating that imported ethanol, when denatured, is exempt from excise. So they had a ruling which exempts from excise tax the denaturation of imported ethanol.
Parang nagugulan ako. Iba yung sinasabi ni Mr. Villardo and Mr. Attorney Manuel. So let's clarify this. That's also one of the reasons why we have this bill, is to make it clear, diba? That's the reason, to avoid this confusion among our tax authorities and also our stakeholders, our companies. No? But just for the purpose of this hearing, let me just be clear. Yung denatured, imported ethyl, locally denatured, si denatured ba mayroong excise o wala? Imported ethyl.
Tapos i-denature dito.
Tama, dito i-denature.
Hindi po pwede, Your Honor, kasi distillery lang yung pwedeng mag-denature.
Yeah, distillery ang
Hindi
nag-denature.
po sila pwede mag-import as I...
Yeah, but the ethyl is imported.
Imported. Pero kung in-import niya, Your Honor, yun, distillery siya, at compounder siya,
And compounder siya.
under ban.
Oo.
Under ban po yun, under our RMC. Pero kung si distillery mismo mag-i-import, at hindi naman niya i-compound, taxable po yun. At i-denature niyo po, dapat po yung sarili niyang produkto, domestic.
The distillery and compounders are same company? Can be the same company, diba? The distillers and compounders?
Yes po, kasi we can have distillers permit and compounding permit. Okay? So kasi the process of denaturing is a compounding process. So that's where we blend in the denaturant. So I'm asking my colleague kasi he was saying na domestically denatured. So it doesn't matter whether it is imported or domestic ethyl alcohol that we are denaturing, no? Kasi it says domestically denatured. Oo. Right now, what lang is not allowed is the importation of imported denatured.
Yeah. Well, right now, as I understand it, I also understand that BIR imposes excise tax on imported ethyl denatured here. So, yun ang understand.
Actually, that is where the splash ruling mentioned by the distillers, as well as to a certain degree the Emperador distiller BIR ruling comes from. The denatured alcohol being imported is unfit for consumption. That is why it is not being imposed with excise taxes.
Thank you for that. Attorney Meneses?
So lang, just a clarification, because the BR said the basis for imposing excise tax on denatured alcohol is Section 141. Section 141 is distilled spirit. Are we saying the same yung tax ng denatured and distilled spirit?
Can you law? Denatured alcohol, regardless where it comes from, will not be subjected. Diretsong imported, meron rin, no? So, in the
No? Maybe, I don't know, we leave it up to you, but maybe we can give a distinction that we allow it only for cosmetic grade